following the massive success of Blade and its fan favorite sequel, Blade 2, fans were really up for the hype to see what New Line Cinema can do for the Blade trilogy. And in 2004, we would finally receive like the last ever Blade movie in Marvel movie history. But sadly, unlike the previous two films, it would not stick the landing as the other ones. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly why this movie didn't work and other ways it could have done better. What's up, guys? My name is Nate, and on this 34th episode of the Road to Avengers Doomsday, we're taking a look at Blade Trinity, a movie with new characters, a different tone, and a legacy that's still debated even to this day. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this show as I take you a deep dive into the abominable movie that is Blade Trinity. So, while the first two Blade movies relied on the heavy action and much of the fight scenes of the vampires, Blade Trinity decided to take a different road. This film leads more into the team dynamics, the humor, and the slightly lighter tone. Reminds me of something familiar. Which is a big shift from like the darker and more focused style like in the early movies. And for a lot of fans, including myself, that did stick the landing. And even to this day, people are still wondering, what was New Line Cinema thinking of doing this different approach? So, the cast is back up and running. So, Wesley Snipes returns as the legendary Blade himself. He is still intense, still powerful, and still the Daywalker. But this time, he feels less like the center of the story, which is surprising because it's a trilogy. When you establish a character in a trilogy, you are focused on that one specific person. If you move it out of that spotlight, it doesn't work. And that's exactly what happened here in Blade Trinity. So one of the biggest additions in this movie is its new team, the Night Stalkers. They're introducing a character's name, and they have a pretty good cast for like these new characters. Starting off with Abigail Whistler, played by Jessica Biley. And I gotta say, they probably picked a good little actress to do like a role like this, especially for Blade. And also the Hannibal King, played by surprising up rom-comedy star Ryan Reynolds. And fun fact, this was his first Marvel project, long before he would do Deadpool, and before Deadpool he did the abomination that is Green Lantern. I was surprised to know when I was doing research this video. This team dynamic shifts the focus away as Blade as the lone warrior to a more group effort. Ryan Reynolds in particular brings a very boatload of humor, almost previewing the style he'd later do in the Deadpool films. But you can see how much he tries to do that. So the main villain of Blade Trinity is none other than Dracula himself. So Dracula is played by Dominic Purcell, and I really like how they managed to pick like a good actor to play an evil vampire. It's pretty cool. And on paper, it should have been huge. Blade versus Dracula, a pretty great concept. But sadly in execution, it feels so overwhelming. Dracula doesn't get enough development, and his presence never feels like intimidating as it should be. So, I know this is a video, but you may be wondering, what's Blade Trinity about? Well, I'm about to tell you guys right now. Blade is being framed for like the crimes that he didn't commit by the FBI. He's forced Blade to come out of the shadows and into the public eye itself. Meanwhile, the vampires awaken Dracula as a final solution to unalive Blade once and for all. So Blade teams up with the Night Stalkers to stop the glowing vampire threat once and for all. It's a solid premise, but the storytelling feels less focused and compared to the earlier films. One of the most noticeable changes was the humor. There are more jokes, more banter, especially from Hannibal King. For some viewers, it's some funny, but others, it just like ruins the tone of the Blade movies. Like, I don't know what New Line Cinema was thinking to doing this, but they must have realized, oh brother, what have we done here? And there is still action in the movie, the fights, the weapons, and the vampire battles, but it doesn't feel as sharp as impactful, just like in the previous movie, Blade 2. This style feels more generic, less unique, and that's a big step down from what came before. It's also worth mentioning, the film had been well known behind the scenes issues. There were creative differences and production challenges all in all corners. And that tension can be felt in like the final project. So when Blade Trinity was released in 2004, it received mostly negative reviews. And it marked the end of the Blade trilogy. But even despite its flaws, the Blade series remains as whole as incredibly important. It helped pave way for some future modern Marvel movies, and showed that comic book movies can take big risk. And also the fact, this was the last time we'd ever see a Blade movie. Like, I know Marvel Studios was planning to do one with, like, Mahershala Ali, but there's barely any updates on it, and I don't think we see any Blade anytime soon. So in conclusion, Blade Trinity may not have the ending fans hope for, but still part of the journey. A reminder that even successful franchises can stumble. And on the road to Avengers Doomsday, every chapter, good or bad, helps shape what comes next. If you enjoyed this episode of Nate Reviews, make sure you give a like and subscribe, and let me know down below in the comments. Was Blade Trinity a disappointing finale or overrated? I'll see you in the next part for Road to Avengers Doomsday as we continue this long journey ahead. Peace out and have a good day.